Hey, what's up? What's up? Welcome to the Artist Exchange Media Hub. We are week 5 into the networking slash series that myself and Mr. Allen, Smashing Allen, is partaking in. And we are um, having a number of conversations, a series of conversations surrounding issues that may directly or indirectly affect us as Black men, but it's all from our perspective. This week, we're talking about Black politics and religion. Shout out to the indictment of Trump. I just wanted to say that I was going to put a picture, but I was like, that's like advertising him, and I'm not going to give him that type of uh, play at all. But
I'm
shout
gonna
out to us finally doing something for our greater good in this country. But jumping right into the politics conversation, and we can speak about it, Alan, separately, or we can combine it because it's already mixed up and mushed together, unfortunately.
yeah.
But for me, this conversation, I decided last week to add religion to it because so many of our laws are so the way they're pushing, especially like the right wing of our politics, they're pushing everything in a space of morality. They're standing on this morality platform in terms of the Republican
Value.
Party, and it's a weird feeling that especially when many of them are being indicted themselves on
Right.
charges or corruption or being pulled out the closet and so on and so forth. But it is such a sticky conversation in this country and many countries, but specifically the United States. We have a horrible way of making laws for certain people and not for everybody that benefits a few people and not the majority or not everyone. And we always tie all that into a bow, no matter what your political affiliation is. But yeah, so how you feeling, sir?
Um, I do feel pretty good today for the most part. I mean, it's not I'm off, so that's part of the day. Um, but yeah, to build on what you said, because I agree with what you said about um how a lot of our laws are based from a religious standpoint and not spiritual but religious because they say this is a God fearing country. And a lot of
Hmm.
time that's always infused into rhetoric with a lot of conservatives to say that good Christian values or God doesn't say that. That's always like the ultimate end quantifier in any debate. Turns into God didn't make it that way, so that's not how it's going to be. And a long time ago, early politicians in America had a thing where they wanted the separation between church and state because oftentimes that can be a little dangerous when we're fusing religious rhetoric with
Hmm.
politics, policies that maybe due to the fact these religions are a little older in time, a couple hundred years ago, where stoning and killing people for being different was a little bit more acceptable. Or
Right.
nowadays during this time, you that's not something that we can still abide by because God ordained it. We're a little older in time where we should be able to still have love for other people, even if we disagree with them religiously, because we still have to live amongst each other, and that's where that separation of church and state should be. But I don't think it's ever been like properly put together. And I wanted to ask you that too. Do you feel that we should separate religion and politics from each other, or do you think there's a benefit to them being together?
It even I mean either if you're no matter what side you're coming from, it gets messy because wi- people aren't willing to always see someone else's point of view, or someone else's side of a topic or issue, and that's why I like having these types of conversations because it's a healthy space to be able to either debate or share your perspective in a way where I hear you and you're being heard.
Yeah.
But I see when it comes to politics, my cons- consistent frustration with our political system is that those individuals get into office and act as if they aren't responsible to us, or they aren't working for everyone's greater good or everyone's perspective, and they forget that, and they begin to push their own personal agendas. And I don't know how we rectify that, or how we get that back to a space where it belongs, where these individuals are working for the country, for the citizens of the country, and not simply their own individual ideologies or special interests. And that, when you mix religion into that, now we're having to deal with the morality of how you feel towards me. Um, i.e., Roe versus Wade, or Brown versus the Board of Education, or many of those things that were morality issues,
Yeah.
how they started, but you made it about your own personal ideologies or religious standpoints or perspectives versus the people who you are there to um,
To serve.
serve.
Fair.
And I was trying to find another word other than serve, but that's what it is. Like, you're in service to the country once you get that position, whether you're voted in, whether you are employed. If you work for the government, you are of service to the country and not simply your own individual beliefs. And it is getting sticky now. Like, I'm looking at Florida, and I just heard a clip that says wokeness is wokeness comes to Florida to die. And I was like, that is weird. I'm not, pushing that woke agenda necessarily, because I just have my own specific viewpoints on how it's being used as a weapon. But I
Yeah.
don't I'm trying to wrap my head around, and I know people that look like us who are still moving to places like Florida and Texas, or the middle America areas. I know people who are actively taking themselves and their children and their families to these areas to live and grow or retire. And I'm saying, how do you move to a space that is saying to you, I don't care about any of your needs, I don't care about your history, I don't care about you, and be comfortable living in a space like that. I couldn't comfortably go to sleep in Florida, especially in this day and age. I couldn't, like, I
And
couldn't spend a night.
I mean, welcome to living, in America, man. Man, this
Hmm.
politics always going to suit those who are in a position of power to make politics suit their perspective and needs. And at the end of the day, if we have a predominantly conservative Congress and hearing, they don't want to hear all this history about how we are terrorizing black folk.
Right.
And most importantly, we need to stop having these black people feel like they're victims. Because that was 400 years ago, we ain't enslaved y'all. Those are the arguments. Not
Mm.
that policies and politics are always formed as repercussions to something that happened or went wrong.
Right. Right.
This entire country's policy, in terms of how it deals with social programs, it's all founded on the oppression of other people. And that oppression was often religiously justified. So they've used both tools as ways to justify devil activity.
Mm. So, where, jumping to a totally different area, where are you with we don't have a say, we don't have the power to make change happen for especially people that look like us, brown and black people, minorities, special populations of people who feel marginalized or oppressed. How do you feel? Do you feel that we don't have that power to make that change?
I actually believe we do. I do believe. I believe that um, people have been very strategic in how they've been telling us what's the power versus what's not the power.
Right.
Like they'll be like, "Oh, we need to go in things and help vote for your head of Congress and your head of thing." And while that's important, congressional hearings are important. getting enough people in Congress that you actually believe in. But the next most important thing is voting locally. Voting nationally affects people on federal law on a federal basis as a standard. Locally affects your way of life. Locally. That town hall meeting when you're going to see your chief of police and he got a history of tasing and beating innocent people for 20 years, get the town hall meeting, you can catch them before they vote them in. You can catch them before things is passed. You can protest. So public...
That seems to be an issue because that specific thing seems to be an issue because people don't feel that local politics are as important or important at all compared to simply voting in a senator or the president.
Like local politics will make the state buckle, depending on what it. Look at the Black Panthers. Black Panthers had WIC, food drives, all this stuff that was taking money out the government pocket. The government had to start taking some of what the Black Panthers was doing as social programs, like WIC and things like that. Because that's the power. The power is not in Black capitalism, like conservatives like to tell us, where if Black people just buy Black, we're gonna buy our ways out of oppression. It's not. That doesn't make sense. Like policies have to be changed, like policies that allow redlining and discriminatory actions to go unpunished. So that's why I asked her to be separated, because like when politics are politics and it's about the betterment of every citizen, then I'm not using my racial, my political, or my political differences and hatred toward people for policies.
But even in that, even in saying it that way, it's still there's work that needs to be done even before we can get a policy passed or created.
Work that gotta
we
be
have
done.
to begin to hold accountable the individuals that get in office and either choose greed or their own personal intentions or just laziness, where they just simply collecting a check. I feel that we have a responsibility to know like what's being done. When it comes to say gentrifying, and I think his thing was moving. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
I think your speaker is feeding back. Or your
device.
But it simply is a space where we have to. I don't think it's about letting certain individuals in or letting them. But I do feel that we have to be responsible for who we put in there. It takes me back to when Trump and Hillary Clinton was running, and that whole idea of the lesser of two evils. I can't believe that Trump was considered the lesser of two evils. And I guess I don't want to bring the media into it and how they polarize that election, but I don't see how anybody could have chosen somebody any less qualified. Because there's one thing to put somebody like a Hillary Clinton in office and make sure she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. Or simply choosing Trump because it's going to be financially beneficial for you as an individual. Not looking at all the things that he reversed and he put monkey wrenches in, but simply because he just chose to make decisions for his own greed, his family's greed, his friends and other special interest groups that got him elected. But putting issues together, religion and politics, it feels scary that we're in a space that feels like at any moment we're going to crash and burn as a country. I don't know what that will mean moving forward. I don't know what that will do to our country moving forward. But
do you
do
have an
you have an
idea of
idea of
how we
how
can
we can
fix
fix
our
our
election
election
process?
process?
I know
I
that's a
know that's a
big
big
feat, but
feat,
do
but
you
do you
have an
have an
idea of how
idea of
we
how
can
we
fix
can
it?
fix it?
Um, I'm I've been looking into this for a long time, and I always feel
I,
a
I
deep.
don't
I
I,
don't
I don't know
I
if
don't know
it's
if it's
your
your
speaker.
speaker.
Can you
Can you
log out
log
and
out
log
and
back
log
in?
back
Because
in?
you
Because you
sound just
sound just
very
very,
very low.
very low.
I'm gonna come back in.
So as we continue the conversation, we definitely want to hear from you. So if you tune in, even if you listen to this after the show, please put your questions and your comments into the comment section. We want to hear your perspective, your point of view on this, and how you think we can make this better. Because we can't keep, you know, talking about it, and then when election season comes, then we're all in on it, but it feels crazy to continue to have a conversation and nothing changes. So every president we bring in, there's a new conversation based on the old ones. And nothing's really changing because we're allowing the same people to come in. And we can't keep blaming the good politicians because we were lazy and let the old ones stay,
Right.
or the bad ones stay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I can
Okay.
hear
Okay.
you.
Sure. But back to your previous question, my fault that for cutting out.
Hmm.
The big thing I believe in is just what our money goes to for social policies, because we spend
Hmm.
almost $70 million
Mm.
annually. Like excuse me, 12.7 billion, not even million, $1 billion just on military alone. Just,
Mm.
just on our armed activity and services, and the militarization of the police as well. They got huge amounts of money to militarize weapon up, when these monies can go to social programs in schools. And that's why there was a big thing called defund the police. And that was a big thing, is just redistributing all this money that the taxpayer dollars are going to, versus putting more cops on the street in these cities where crime is rising. You put more social programs and social workers, activities for kids, gardens, things that allow the people to have less worries about money, since they're able to have more things that cover their basic needs like food and shelter and homes and health care, which is a human right. Once you remove the desperation from people and fight the poverty, you deal with the crime. You deal with the crime, we can then have more people who are more politically inclined, because they're no longer fighting for their existence, and because the government not getting so much money from us and police and these arrests. And that's what's getting a lot of our money as well, is excess bread, because cops get paid for arrests, they don't get paid for actually court cases being settled. They get paid for filling a docket. So they can just harass and arrest you just for the case. That influences our politics, because the politicians are going to work with the people who are bringing in the revenue, which is the police.
It is weird to me that a service agency, basically a glorified nonprofit, is allowed to run as if it's a corporation, and that's the government for me. And I know, at the end of the day, it is a corporation because
Yeah,
you are hiring and firing, you are, supplying goods and services. But at the end of the day, it's a nonprofit.
it's,
It's
it's
not intended to become a profit making machine. And not that I want this to be, any other type of country other than a democracy, but it is, I keep saying weird, but it's frustrating to me that doing, like, right now, we're living in a space where, here in Maryland, they put in a bag tax. So the thought behind it was it was going to prevent a lot of recyclable goods from not being recycled, and people's usage would decrease or will go to these reusable bag systems. And a lot of that has happened. But what also happened on the flip side of that, stores have begun to use this as revenue. Now, simply, and I'm still unclear about how. So are these stores paying the tax to the government, and the buck is this being passed down to us, or was it just a system for us to recycle more? Like it's really hard to even look at issues like that because now you have certain stores that are charging you 5 cents for a bag that you really can't use. It's like a paper thin bag. Then you have other stores that are charging you for that bag, but upcharging you for more durable bags that you may have been using already, that they may have been selling. And it keeps going back and forth. And it's like, are you trying purposely to just take money from me? Like,
Right.
even with taxes, like it seems like the people who make the least pay the most. As
Yeah.
a teaching artist slash substitute, just strictly for the school system. I remember the first year of the pandemic when a lot of the laws were starting to be changed. I paid more in taxes and what felt like that I owed. I mean that I actually made. I think I paid more in taxes than I actually made. It feels that way, and it's
Right.
a weird thing to even explain. Like everything is rising in cost, but nobody's regulating that. You can put an arbitrary number on the price of eggs, and I'm like, did every farm that supplies eggs to the markets, did everything get salmonella poison? Did all of them suffer from it all at once? So that's why we're charged like they're just arbitrarily charging us more for things and just calling it supply and demand, or
I mean,
blaming it on the pandemic.
that's the insidious things of like how black people have been manipulated through politics and religion as well. Because make no mistake, every religion has been weaponized against us. People like to just argue with Christianity, but Islam was literally indoctrinated onto people due to slavery, from Arabic
Mm,
slavery. So before we were enslaved by one person, we were enslaved by another group of people. That's why all the Northern Africans were Muslim. They
I
they
so let's talk about that part of it. So if we go talk about religion, I'll let you ignite that. Where are we with that topic in terms of your perspective?
I feel black people's spirituality and religion have been like fused together to think like they're like one and the same when they're not. Um,
Hmm.
Religion, by definition, is a system of control and indoctrination, and we normalize that because we raise our children, and religion is it's an organized system of things you're allowed to do and not do. It's a way of life. It's instructions. That's religion. It's an instruction of how you operate in the service of this particular group.
Right.
Spirituality is your own journey, spiritual path that you learn on your own, and you're making your own connections with the other side, whatever you call that. And that's more of the overall aspect of being spiritual, being into the ethereal, basically.
Hmm.
And for black people, we didn't understand for a long time the separation, and that was weaponized. So when the conservative party or other insidious groups want to pass laws, they get these black conservatives, these hardcore black conservatives who pander all these, black capitalist marketing strategies to try to get our votes and to get our dollars. It's insidious because they're playing on our spirituality, our connectiveness to the other side. Black, we're when it comes to religion, especially you've been in a black church, it's its own experience. It's one of a
Hmm.
kind. The energy you get in that room, even if you're not a Christian per se, you just feel the level of love, the spirit strong in that room.
Right.
But
Right.
that spirit isn't innately just for Christianity. It's just for anything we practice. You see, black Muslims are like one of a kind. You see Nation of Islam. There ain't no other pack of Muslims you see that give you the energy like Nation of Islam because it's just black people's inherent spirituality.
Hmm.
And other groups know that, so they'll have these black guys who are like police chiefs and like conservatives, and a lot of pastors who are really conservative on the low, but they weaponize black spirituality so they can get political gain, and it's used to weaponize us to get to the pulpit or vote for this person because this person cutting them a check, so they about to make money because they cut them a check. Mind you, this check does nothing for you, but I'm gonna use spirituality so I can get him a check so I can get a check, and you come to my church every Sunday because churches, the pastor gets tax write-offs, so not every pastor is for the benefit of his community, but for the amount of money he's able to make and not reporting taxes.
Well, so I like to clarify that. So it's not the pastor that gets the write-off; it's the church,
The
the
church
business
itself.
of the business. Because I think a
Okay.
lot of people misunderstand that. Because the pastor still has to pay his own outside,
Individual taxes. Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Okay, okay.
I want to make sure that is clear because that's something that I was misinformed
No, I
about
appreciate
as
that.
well. I thought the pastors were part of the church, but the church itself, the incorporation of the church, does
That's
not
the
have to
tax.
pay taxes.
That's the tax
Uh,
write-off.
but as you were saying, and it's not even. I don't even like calling them conservatives. I like calling them uh, greedy. Like they're in it for the even on the passive side, is everybody is doing this for a fee or a return, and that so even what we had to go through the pandemic was uncalled for and unconscionable that you would allow someone in this to lead this country in the way that they allowed Trump to lead it, simply because it was financial gains in it. Business owners and most people who I know personally who are Republicans, it's all financial to them. It's
It's all
not a morality clause. Some of them is more, morals, on issues of like abortion or homosexuality, stuff like that. But most of them, it's all about their bottom line and them staying in a tax bracket that has them paying the least and getting the most. And that is the part that is it's crazy to me. We're living in a space where people are really being taxed beyond any measure, and constantly being pulled. Like right now, even the real estate market is so out of whack because you have it on the renter side where renters are now paying way more, and it's so much harder for you to even achieve home ownership. But the whole idea of home ownership seems to be bogus and
right,
not even what it's being made out to be. Because I'm somebody who's owned a home before, and it's not what it is cracked up to be.
right,
It's not. It's not your the fees, and I think it's just all in who you are and where you actually live, and where you own that home or where you rent that home. And I can't imagine that people are seeing these things happen, and nothing is being done on a local level, state or federal level. And it just I can't imagine going
the real.
how we're gonna make it any further.
I mean, the problem with both is money. I mean,
Hmm.
when you put money in the equation of religion and politics, it became about money and not either. About money. Like
Right.
I'm gonna pass a bill like the restrict ban. They want to restrict TikTok, but what really is they want to restrict people's freedoms and rights on the internet, where there's a council of people,
Hmm.
council of communications that meet in back rooms and just decide if you're a threat, and they just monitor and spy on you for as long as they want to. So say me and
Hmm.
you are having this conversation here, and they say, "Well, that's inappropriate. That could be information to our foreign adversaries." Now they're in every inbox we have, every email, every
Well,
spam
I'm gonna
folder.
tell you, I'm gonna say something funny to you, and it's gonna seem weird, but every show that we've done, I've gotten a strike from Facebook.
Why?
I can't. I don't have any. Literally every single one, and because people are allowed to complain privately, anonymously. You don't know who it is, and I remember the show that we did on who set your sexual value. Um, that was the first time that I got um a sexual it was nudity and obscene sexual content on it. And
What?
literally every single one, and I this has happened to me in the past, but it has not happened for every single show. And it's the idea like, we're going to take your monetization away. We're going to let you have it again. We're going to take it away and dangle it in front of you. And it is a weird feeling. Like the first episode, I got a strike and I was for the last 30 days and it just opened up. And now I'm back to another 30 days where certain things are restricted. And it's a weird thing. So what you just said, I used to be like, maybe that's a conspiracy theory, but it happens. Conversation can really provoke because they use sound bites and all this AI generation and all these things to be able to tap into what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's literally the law. Like, you look at the TikTok ban and read through it, like that's even in the law. They can set up their own council. There's going to be a new thing called, how they got the Secretary of Defense.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the same thing, but for the internet, the Secretary of Communication. And he's going to have his own council, but there's no Congress and no voting. We don't know who he elects. He can elect anyone.
And that's the weird thing. That's even like, electing the electoral college. Many people don't even and I remember I only found out about it because I had a cousin who was running for the seat. I always assumed it was just like a secret council, which it was for many years. I didn't know that we actually voted those people in. And they often slid in there because nobody else was running against them, or people didn't know who they were voting for. But it's been, I think, about 8 to 7 years that I realized that we actually vote the people in who have the ultimate power in voting in who's going to be the next president. And that's on a local level. That's not federal elections. That's a local election.
Right.
And that's those things are scary. I mean, I'm one of those people who believe not necessarily that the internet needs to be policed, but there needs to be some standard practice because one, even over the pandemic, I think the number of spam calls, all these things that me realizing what cookies are. Cookies are them asking you, do you want me to share your information with everybody who needs it? And we used to just click on that just to get to wherever we wanted to go on the internet. But there needs to be certain things, even on the phone lines, the amount of people that get your personal phone number. And these companies can just sell your information across the internet with no ramifications.
Yeah, I mean, people don't realize that, like, you've been getting monitored. That's why when Snowden came out and exposed people for the government monitoring you, they've been monitoring you. They just have to pass a law that makes it legal so they can start doing the most.
Right.
Because like they've been monitoring you, so like they can't arrest you for things that you talked about that they technically weren't supposed to be listening to. But if I pass a law saying that if I deem you a threat and I put you on a list on the watch list, I can watch your ass and you get to acting crazy. Now I can just come in there and break in your house. No warrant, because that's what the Patriot Act put. The Patriot Act literally was they don't need a warrant if there's a reasonable suspicion of a crime.
Right. And now that I've been on my own, like my own built platform and not a station, I start seeing my numbers rise. And then I tell you, when I started this show, it just started one by one. And I was like, we're not even talking about anything sexual. We haven't said anything obscene.
These are
Other
like
shows that I do, we get very out of control sometimes with what we talk about. But I was like, this is this point of view talking. But like you said, they're listening, and if it doesn't fit their agenda, then they find a way to creatively control it.
It's going against like, because politics and religion, again, when they're weaponized, and once you realize that neither of those in truth, both of those are weaponized against us as a people, and they keep us believing in like cycles of like, oh, vote for this person and vote for that person, they're gonna make all the change. But no, if we all get together and go to that town hall meeting and we say, hey, that ain't flying, we're the ones that make that. We put pressure on these people. This is our taxpayer money. We need to act like it's our money that they're using. We need to stop acting like that. That's just their God-given right to make choices on our behalf, and we're not in the room. We need to be in the room. And people do go to these town hall meetings. People do show up. I think they downplay. I think they downplay the power of people, how a lot of these laws haven't been passed because of our feedback of us saying, hell no.
Like the history behind like the Daughters of the Confederacy or organizations like that, because typically they show up to these things and they get their special interests addressed. I remember after Freddie Gray here happened,
Yeah.
my station was right next to City Hall, and I started going to the weekly Monday meetings, and I started seeing the certain organizations coming, and I would see it, and then I would see something happen in real time, like in reality, in terms of them getting funding or them getting special perks, and all because they showed up and they pushed their agenda. And I know we have to work. We live in a space where everything costs, time costs. So you have
Right.
to really, balance that, but we have to sacrifice in some areas so we are accounted for. Again, I'm in the school system and I see a lot of the parents that show up to the meetings, though their children get all the resources, their children get pushed through, their children get a lot of the opportunities, and and we're not having it, or enough people aren't being represented by people who are having most of the problems. And
Yeah.
it's not, nothing's happening. And I'm saying this, and even my political interest is waning because I know we have a voice. I know if we collectively turn the billions of dollars that they say the Black community spends every year into a voice, like the Asian community, like, the Jewish community, if we did that, you know Park Heights, correct?
Yeah.
And it is amazing to me that above Northern Parkway is still Park Heights. Looks totally different. There's a predominantly Jewish community that lives there, and all
Oh
of them
wow.
slowly. Park Heights used to be Jewish on both sides, but you clearly see the difference between the southern part of Park Heights and the northern part of Park Heights. And it's simply Northern Parkway separates that. And the moment you change over, the environment is completely different. Instantly. And that's the only reason why even like the racetrack is still there. They put money into building that while everything else around it is in decay.
Yeah. Like
Celebrities, everybody, Oprah, all these people were there for Preakness recently. But everything I could imagine them like how did they get there? Most of them probably stayed either all the way out or downtown, but you had to drive through that. Even getting off 83, you still have to drive through a portion of that.
you still have to drive through that. You trying to go downtown. At least a
And
portion.
they're just tearing down. I don't know how long ago it's since you've been here, but like up and down Park Heights, they are just removing all of the homes. Like you see blocks that used to be abandoned homes or beat down homes that is just grass now.
No, I said, I last time I was in Baltimore, I think I was 15, 16. So I mean, I know the city's a whole different place
Right.
since last time I was there now. Like they said a lot of West Baltimore, them little abandoned houses and stuff, they was remodeling all that, renovating. Like some of these areas used to be like nothing but black folk in these neighborhoods. Now it's like they're gentrifying some of those areas. Some areas are still bad, but some areas
But
are.
even with the idea of gentrification, most of those, so about around the time that we live, but by the time we hear the information, the decisions has already been made in their own personal meetings. They have those community driven meetings simply for show. And they've already made a decision as to what they are doing. And so once we start voicing our opinions, they're sitting there, yeah, we got 5 more minutes of this because they've already made the decisions to move forward or to re-gentrify. And when I say they have $500,000 condos and homes being built right in off of Reservoir Hill or along that Drew Hill Park area.
It's the same here in Savannah, bro. They do this
Mm-hmm.
thing with like they'll like going by River Street, you'll see all these nice bars and stuff like that. But like you
Mm-hmm.
go right under the bridge, it's the projects, and it's right next to a tourist attraction where you have people like Conor McGregor was just here in Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
He was here in Savannah, just like I
Mm-hmm.
having a good old time here in Savannah. But like he had to drive around the bridge, and the bridge is literally the projects.
You're right.
And I'm just like, I don't understand how y'all have all the money to put into this one area. Like SCAD, an international art school, is right there on River Street in Savannah. But
Mm-hmm.
it literally, I used to go to see these friends at my college, not at my college, but at college, Georgia Southern.
Right.
And Georgia Southern dorms were literally an old housing projects, like a hood that is now their dorms, but it's right next to a hood. So they were having like shootings on campus.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was right next to the hood, so like half the people living there didn't even go to college.
That's like Coppin. So along North Avenue you have Coppin, that's more West Baltimore, and then you have Micah, which is a subset of Johns Hopkins University that's in the central Charles Village, Mount Vernon, between that. So you have these two dynamics, and Coppin looks like this, and they're just starting to get advancement and getting funded, but it looks a lot different than probably when you last saw it. But Micah is just a staple and just constantly. Our past governor was his wife was the president of that school.
Mm,
So you can see all of the opportunities that school got. So much so that now, like so I'm currently looking for a new place to live, and you'll see properties, and they'll strictly say Micah John Hopkins students or grad students. And if you ever went to real estate school, you'll realize one, that's illegal for them to
right.
even put it in there that way. But it's also crazy. So where will people live? The county don't want them. So where do you expect for people to move? Like
They don't
where you price them out to move where? Where are these people supposed to all live?
where they're supposed to go, and in their mind, well, it's not our problem. But it's like, yeah, it
Hmm.
is because you're telling them to get out.
Right.
So, and I think politics are money driven and not or religion. They're supposed to be in the service of people, and they're in the service of those who are like propagating it, like those who are pushing it out.
The 1% that's in leadership.
I think this is about money. And I wanted to ask that as well. Do you feel like if could both be positives if we use them in the right way, religion and politics, especially as far as we're concerned?
Mm. Politics, of course, because it is the skeleton of the country.
Yeah.
And if done the right way, it can promote change. But part of the problem is so, and I'm gonna throw it out, and I don't know how people take it, but you have Obama in there, and
Right.
you have people who, as he was campaigning, all they thought about was the first black, da 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 da. Da. He got in. Those same people, I was going to say Ricky Smiley, Tavis Smiley's. I'm trying to think of names that all went against him,
Right.
and it's almost like anytime we get an open door, we slam it shut because he could have been more powerful had he had more people supporting him, and not from a historical, the first black president point of view.
versus us just supporting him and paying attention to his
Right.
policy.
Voting, going to the community meetings, holding our local governments accountable and not just slapping them on the wrist, but actually backing them in the same way we back when we're about to get a new football team, or the same way we're supporting a new, gambling institution in our cities. We need to support things the same way, not things that are just strictly entertainment or sports related. But if we held our uh, senators, our governors, our mayors, just as accountable as we hold the person who is just at the top of the food chain. That I mean, if we're just looking at him, look at all the foolishness that's happening on our local level.
I mean, the local level, what people, a lot of people don't, and the local level, what a lot of people don't understand is that local level of politics is going to affect like your day to day life.
Every day.
Like
Yep.
the
Yep.
police chief or your senator,
Superintendent.
yeah, the school council, the student
Mm-hmm.
council, the school board, all
Yep.
of that, man.
Yep.
All of those things are affected by municipal politics. Your school system could be getting ran to the ground because you're not paying attention to the person that's handling the school board. It could be somebody who has a history of this because you weren't at the hearing when they were trying
Yep.
to put this person in, you weren't able to protest these things in front of that board. Where now that the public aware, like being there in those meetings matters. It matters because they can only lie in your face if you let them. You got to call them out
Mm.
on this nonsense because they still have to get public approval to have the public support in a bill.
Our superintendent is labeled as for the school system. Here is a black woman who is labeled as a CEO of the school board and not the superintendent. And that's just strictly, I believe it's a degree. The difference is in a degree, and I couldn't understand how could you even take a title as a CEO? You're automatically turning the school system into a business where you're
Right.
closing down schools. The school that I was at last year is now being closed down, and they have ultimate support from the actual community the school is in. And I remember sitting in those meetings where they basically said, this is happening. Whether you all like it or not, you all can campaign and slow up the process, but it's going to happen. And you have people who now have to think about, okay, my child I used to could just walk across the street or around the corner. Now I have to drive my child to school. That's gonna make me late. Like things like that, where it doesn't affect the powers that be. It only affects the people that are at the other end of that stick. And I don't know what to say or do on the religion side to answer that question that you asked. Um, I am finding it hard to imagine the church or not the building of the church, but the leadership, the congregation to be a safe space for us right now. And that, for me, I love God, but I don't feel that the body, the hands, the flesh of the church is a safe space for us right now because they are gambling their morality with people's actual lives.
Yeah.
And they're doing so in the pursuit of political game. We look how many pastors was running for office or was sitting in that room with Trump, and nothing happened from that. So you took a photo op moment to just be able to sit next to him. As you said, many of them are conservatives to sit there because I don't see any black man who is or black person who is for their community sitting in a room with Trump to discuss anything.
I don't see any black man who had the political know-how to realize that a lot of what Trump was doing was he was doing temporary fixes to long-standing problems, and he was trying to appease to the public, but he was just making it easier for his rich homeboys to make money. We don't look at how many white supremacists he was openly putting in office and in positions of power. Our Secretary of Defense was literally a known white supremacist.
And
You
what
know,
does that look like to the country? What does that look like when you put someone in office that way?
like the policies, I don't think people realize like how they're rolling back on removing like black history from like Texas and Florida school systems. But again, because Trump elected so many of these people, got as many Republicans in office,
Hmm.
specifically from that section fringe of the Republicans, was a bunch of white supremacists.
But let's be honest, if you didn't go to a predominantly black run school, you didn't get black history anyway. I went to private school. I can remember one day in high school. I can't even say. Well, what middle school, and elementary school, you don't typically get history classes unless it's like a charter school or private school. But even in that, going to these predominantly white Catholic schools, run predominantly white run schools, I've got one class out of 4 years of Black history, and that simply was slavery wasn't as bad as it's been made out to be. And as I want to say, I was probably in the 11th grade at that point. The devastation that I felt, only because in elementary school I had a Black principal, a Black vice principal, Black teachers who were proud of their Africanism and taught it to us.
Right.
Not having that, I don't know where my mindset would be. And what is interesting is I've met many of the students that I was in class with in passing, and I know a lot of them have that implanted in their mind. And then when you hear people say, we got to stop talking about slavery, that's where it starts from. So if you went to any Catholic schools or private schools, middle school, high school, you didn't get Black history anyway. So this not new to me. I didn't get Black history till I went to Coppin. And
Right.
I was learning it in a room full of people who were looking at me strange because I was so excited about history in a way where once you, it's very surface level when you're like in elementary school. You're learning about the Rosa Parks and the MLKs and stuff like that. But in history, me being a theater major, learning who August Wilson was or Douglas Turner Ward was or these types of individuals, I was literally learning in college where it's supposed to be a shared experience in college where you're using what you've learned up until that point and being reintroduced to new ideals or it felt like I was in first grade in college learning Black history beyond the top 5 or 10 people that we learn about. And so when people are complaining about that now, a lot of parents that I know, I say, well, you are sending your child to a school where they're not getting any Black history already.
That's valid. Like,
CRT aside, they have not been getting it already if you haven't given it to them. Now, if you have certain teachers like myself, I'll make sure to incorporate our history, our culture into the classroom. And I've gotten in trouble for that, but I would rather you know who I am and who you are versus, not. Or
yeah.
you need to get it somewhere, you know. But yeah, it's a weird thing. But I feel uncomfortable saying it, but I don't feel like for Black people, the church as it is today is for us or a safe space for us outside of your and I can't even say spiritual growth anymore because everything is hell and damnation right now. If you this, then you go to hell. If you this, you go to hell. But if you got a good singing voice, we gonna overlook those things.
He's like, you can sing good if you're an entertainer.
Right.
Yeah,
If
it's
you got
okay,
a
man.
good cadence, you know how to breathe and and talk. We might overlook some things, but if you don't,
Yeah,
I
man.
ain't gonna be able to help you.
That's really what makes me mad with like the whole debate when we try to debate morality and politics because that's
Mhm.
always they always move the goalpost when it doesn't suit them. It's easy for people to like I was arguing with this dude on me and another Hotep were arguing, and I almost felt in like a bad space because I'm
That's
like,
a
bro,
battle. When I say that's a battle, that is a bad soul.
well, the thing is, I was a former Hotep, so it's like you're arguing with like somebody in your locker room after a game,
Who's
because he
that,
wanted to
brother?
punch. Yeah, like because he wanted to punch the ref, and it's like now I gotta have a conversation saying, bro, like I'm not saying he didn't deserve to get punched. I'm saying you did too much. But so it
But
was
have you noticed that a lot of those, and I speak and I say those in terms of me not considering myself a hotel. I'm versed in my
right,
history. I love my culture, my skin. But many of them have women issues or mommy issues or daddy issues. And I'm not saying everyone, but most of the ones I've come across, they have some issue with self, whether
Oh,
they're overcompensating or they're just learning information and beating people over the head with it.
hoteps are just like black neo-Nazis to me. That's
Mm.
that's the thing
Sorry, you
about it.
gonna get my page shut down for.
My bad, bro. My bad, bro.
I
I
don't. At
got.
this point, I don't care. At this point, it is what it is.
I didn't. I apologize, bro. On
No,
my
no, no, no.
line.
You good. I'm saying that in joking because that community, as you said, is just as radical as these far right, you know, fanatical Christians
It,
out there.
it, to me, the only thing that makes it hard is that I think Hotep's got a bad name for people who are extreme and
Mhm.
and black nationalism. 'Cause I think what a lot of people do is they'll have their anger towards the white power system, so they
But
form.
I feel like that anger is directed towards their own culture.
No, but people, what I'm saying. So they learn consciousness, but the problem
Mhm.
is that instead of learning first, because people jump down the halls of consciousness, but are traumatized and deeply angry at their life choices and circumstances. So now all your politics you're learning
So I'm
are
not gonna have
just
any platform. You was telling people it's truth.
like like
It's
I'm
truth,
just
you
being.
know.
A lot of the people when they become conscious, they're lost. You're lost. You're trying to find yourself. So people come
Hmm.
here damaged. This is B1000. A lot of us walk the halls of consciousness because we were going through something that we were trying to fill a void with. Some people dealt with it healthily. Some people learned themselves healthily. So like our extremism kind of chilled out because we just want to be good people. Some didn't, and they're on. And there was a law in Africa passed that basically, if you consider yourself as LGBT, you'll be killed or put in jail for 20 years. So me
Hmm.
and the dude was arguing all
I
day,
think that
bro.
was Ghana or one of those
Uganda.
countries. Yeah.
So me and someone arguing all day because what he was saying was, well, the America. I think he was trying to make points I wasn't making because my general point was, yo, I can disagree with things all day. Disagree with a lot of things that people do. I disagree wholeheartedly with killing people and putting them in jail for 20 years for them just being themselves. I think that's extreme. My
Right.
politics. So when
But
someone
their
argues,
debate is almost from a space of just being contrary. The
like,
extreme of being contrary.
because his points what he was making will do politics and look at the end of the day that goes against the supreme order, the most high. Like, bro, you're using your religious beliefs as the justification for murder and oppression.
Mm,
I can't do that, bro. I can't.
yeah.
But what's the
And
difference
at
then?
the same time, they are against abortion or against the death penalty, but yet put that person to death because they are an ultimate. Mm,
How do
it
you?
is,
I don't have selective malice. Like, oh man, no man, it's innocent people. Don't kill them, but kill them. And
yeah,
it's like,
that individual right there killed that person.
and they're not doing anything. Like they just came out the supermarket. Him, lock him up. I'm not that person, bro. Like, bro, if you're not harming anybody, I generally do not care how you live your life.
Right.
I'm this is my argument, buddy. Like, bro, we probably agree on more things than you think, bro. But one thing I'm telling you, the
Mhm.
only disagreement I'm having with you, bro, man, they don't deserve to die, bro. That's
Right.
outrageous, bro. Just
And
for
that's
the
whether you agree with it or not personally. It is not your place to tell someone who they could be in love with, who they can have sex with, because and the part that behooves me is the ones who feel like that struggle of either feminism or not feminism, but yeah, like the women's lib movement or homosexuality does not equate to how black people have been treated in this country. And it feels like for the same amount of time.
I mean,
Even though they're historical benchmarks for, you know, the
well,
black culture and our struggle.
because the LGBT community was started by black trans people anyway. So a lot
Mhm.
of with feminism was black women that they
Right.
use as a political tool so white women can get their rights so they could stop being treated like second class citizens. And it did black women filthy.
And then now feminism demonized, the same way the LGBT community was co-opted by white gay people who are still racist white people, but they're just gay. So now they throw you in the front lines
Right.
anytime they get criticized to say, well, look at the black trans women who died. But you don't care about the black trans women who die. You don't care about them. You don't care about policies that don't protect against discriminatory violence towards people. You just care as long as you can be accepted in certain places. But you're saying that from perspective of the powers that be, not
I
the
think
people
it was
really being
maybe
affected.
our first conversation or something where you started making the comparison between the Hotep brothers and the Hood brothers, uh,
Yeah.
and that was a pivotal moment in my mind because once I got to Coppin College, I really delved a little bit deeper into my own Africanism and my connection with Africa and the culture. And, I really started engulfing myself in it. But I started seeing these conversations by the people who were considered the woke Hotep brothers and the Hood brothers, and the doctrine started to sound similar. And it was very weird. That's why I said, for me, I feel like both of their hatred is towards their own because,
Mm-hmm.
crazy or not, there were a lot of Hotep brothers and Hood brothers that voted for Trump.
Yeah.
And that blew me. I used to have a co-host, and I had no idea. This is when I started understanding the same way you said it started being more clear to me. And his points of view was like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, we never talked about that. Uh, Let me hear like keep telling me. And the more I kept, I was like, sir, you voted for him? Like you support? Not only did you vote for, I can see you making a mistake and wanting to choose between him and I'll give you that. But when your doctrine begins to line up with his, uh-uh,
I mean,
I,
because
I can't, I can't.
but a lot of people who you see in the whole type of conservatives, a lot of whole types of little. That's why I said they're conservatives. They're conservatives to the T. They're not concerned with the general person in their community. They're concerned with their people in the community.
Hmm.
People who are like-minded with equal political values. They don't care. Like when people say black liberation, people don't want true black liberation through politics. What they want is black power. They
Right.
want black supremacy. They want white supremacy and blackface. They want the exact same. They don't want the system to change. They want their position in the system to change. So that's why when Trump came into office and he's like, "Oh man, well, he's a businessman. He knows how to make money." And it's that the people foolishly believe the man who inherited money that never had a successful business that gets bankrupted, and not Chapter 7, Chapter
But
11
he
bankruptcy.
represents many of them. He represents outside of the money side of it. He represents that ignorant, uh, hypocritical, contrary point of view where you're always fighting the system, seemingly fighting the
You're
system.
you're seemingly fighting the system because you have
Hmm.
a history of sexual harassment and violence towards people, discriminatory actions. You know what Epstein got charged? This is how wild it was. Epstein got charged. His campaign manager, he was the DA that he had appointed. He had to step
Hmm.
down because he was Jeff Epstein's lawyer, and he was implicated in the charges of Epstein. You know who else was charged with Epstein? Trump
Hmm.
in the 90s. And that
Hmm.
wasn't even the first charge he had like that. It was the third. The third
But it was
charge he had.
something. I'm not going to keep saying something. Those qualities, scary as it may sound, they found a commonality in it because many of the men who I feel, and not all of them, because I know some great brothers who consider themselves hoteps or, in that vein, but a lot of them have gone through those things before. So they
Yeah.
created, like, they saw something in him that was a mirror. And it was scary to me because these were people that I would have great conversations with and go out to eat lunch or go to birthday parties with, and to understand that as you begin to pull back that layer that lies inside of them dormant was scary to me because then I was around that first election I was sitting there like I was looking at everybody everybody like they had an issue because you don't know who you're sitting around and how that affects you personally. And I didn't want to judge anybody, but when I start hearing it said out loud, like, man, he's a great person. Like Obama was and everybody, nobody's perfect, but I would definitely follow Obama before I follow a Trump. Like,
Yeah.
or support, rather support Obama before I support a Trump. But what was that pivotal moment for you when you was like, nah, this not my lane anymore?
I mean, when it came to politics for me in general, the real fallback was just when I started getting, because I got super like, I was really I wanted to be a journalist, low key, and I was really into like, so I kind of use my podcast to like practice my journalism. So
Well,
like that's
I
kind of,
mean, you are. I don't think that's changed.
yeah, like no, yeah. So like I wanted to be a journalist. So when I looked into politics, and especially when I got into black politics and black liberation fronts, or the Blackstone Rangers, Black Panther Party,
Hmm.
reading into all these things, it was looking at how both of the political parties that we use equally yoke up and destroy our community. Democrats use us as political pawns, stepping stones, and like an object to sell for oppression porn. But when it comes time to actually make any social reform or changes, they usually do it for every other subgroup. Oftentimes, like I said, the white subset of subgroup in that subgroup. So they're saying, "Oh, we're doing this for women." Yeah, but does it benefit people of color? We don't have any policies or laws placed for black people in particular. It's just the other offshoots of who? Of these alternate lifestyles that the powers that be like to dabble in. So we like to give them the legal right, but it's not for people in a totality because it still affects marginalized people to a different degree.
Mm.
Republicans outright don't like niggas. Let's just call they always said make America great again, to a period where lynchings and burning down towns and sundown towns. That's the era that they want to go back to. The era where like if
Well,
I
America was great again.
that's where it was great again. Where if I said, "Hey, bro, you don't stop staring at my wife like that. Now you're gonna burn crosses in my front yard and pull me out my crib and kill me in front of my children because I just asked you to stop staring at me like I'm some animal." This is what they want to go back to.
Yeah,
I
and
so
that's the part that when he kept saying that phrase, I kept going to a space of y'all don't hear him saying this because I have a friend, Miss Gaskins, and she remembers a Baltimore that was more unified, that was more nice, that where there was opportunities. But I said to her, I said, well, you are from like my mother's and grandmother's era where you all were collective. Even if you didn't like each other, you needed each other. So you remember a Baltimore that I have no idea about. I've read it about it in textbooks. I've heard about it from people like her or my aunt, great aunts and them, but I've never seen that
right.
great Baltimore. Like what? Where was you at? Were you in Oz? Did you find like the magic box, the box at the end of the rainbow or something? Like where did you live? Because I know the city I lived in, and that wasn't it. But it goes to show like when he kept saying it, I was like, I would ask him first, how old are you? And when
Right.
he would say, I'm 45, 47, I'm 50, sir, you don't remember what this city used to be? There were certain areas you couldn't even walk in. I had to read. I used to love the movie Hairspray. I just loved it. But when I began to not only visit the areas, but when I started going to school with people who lived in those areas, the Avenue up in Hamden and Dundalk,
Yeah.
when I started meeting people who grew up, who were
In
raised,
that era.
I had to readjust my love for that movie because I said this is depicted a time, even though the story was telling that story where we couldn't. The only reason we were in that movie because it dealt with a certain racism. Now I'm not saying the people who created that were necessarily racist, but you grew up in that area, so I'm side eyeing you. but I had to readjust things that I liked within my art community because those things were used against me. Or, you watch certain movies that I used to love, and then you look up and the only black person is a maid or a butler, and you're like, oh no, I can't, no, I gotta adjust this. And the art is
Right.
but the messaging is very clear. But yeah, I kept asking people, did you hear what, like, make America great again? And I kept saying, for who? Like,
Like, who is this?
who are you making it great for?
Who is this great for? Like when people say "Make America Great Again," I'm like, for you? Like
Yeah.
maybe it's great for you because I
Right.
remember where old 1950 Baltimore, where people getting their asses beat, were the same way when people like that paddy wagon that R.I.P. to Freddie Gray, but people don't realize people were getting treated like that for a long time.
Yes.
Police. That's not
It's just
new.
we just have the technology to see it in real time now. That's the
Like,
only difference.
like and that's why the one thing I had an issue with The Wire, and I'll say this as a person who was a fan of it, I hated how it tried to almost glamorize the police in one way, because it kind of dealt with a way how like the police were somewhat corrupt and used to like abuse people, but it didn't deal with the fact that police in that city always used to terrorize black people in particular.
Well, that's what happens when you let other people tell your story or take control of your narrative. That's what happens.
You let a cop tell
Hmm.
the story of Baltimore and try to be still being pro-police. Like
Yep.
he's blaming 9/11 for why the police are so aggressive versus saying police have always been this aggressive and police have always been having an issue with
Right.
poor people.
So,
Specifically in
I wasn't. So, if you say that, so I wasn't. The terrorists didn't look like me. So why are you still attacking me? So why? What?
like
None of
I
the terrorists look like me. I'm not even Muslim. So
like
why are you attacking me?
a dog, I just had gum in my pocket, bro. I'm still getting baton and pistol whip and tase, bro. Like this isn't because of 9/11. You're not gonna blame 9/11 while you're tasing me right now, and I got loose cigarettes or I got Skittles or these are the reasons why black people getting killed like that. No, that's not the reason. We
If
always
it culturally, it feels like we have to go through it for us to have any sympathy for it or any understanding of it. And that was me. That was definitely me. I had never had a run in with police officers directly. I heard the stories, I've witnessed some of it, but it wasn't until I called the police to help out someone who I just watched get his ass beat and robbed right in front of me because he was Asian.
right,
And I told the police what I knew, and when I didn't want to give them my ID, one, because I didn't want to be called into no courtroom. I didn't
right,
want to, ruin my day by having to go and do. I gave you my information. Take that down. Make a note of it. Is evidence.
right.
And he told me, "Well, move on then." I said, "No, sir. I'm still waiting on the bus. I'm gonna stand right here until I get my bus and go home." And he was just so adamant and angry. And I saw the black officer that was with him. I said he could have de-escalated this at any moment because it got really heated between him and I. And I wasn't gonna just fold. I'm the one who called you. My number is on 911's record as the person who called him. So you have my information. I gave you my name. You don't what do you need anything else for?
The cops
And
are not for the service of people, they're the service to the state. And if the state doesn't like us as is because they don't deem us as important, then they're gonna treat us as such. And they're
right.
hostile. And it doesn't matter that they look like us or not, because at the end of the day, the police are protected because they're incentivized to get arrests. So they're aggressive as hell. They get paid getting more arrests. The more arrests
It
they
was
put in,
during Freddie Gray, they got so much flack in the city because that was a very international moment that was saw.
yeah.
It it you for about I would say almost a year, you saw them pull back so much. And I know it was done intentionally. Like, oh, you don't, we bad? Okay, we're not even going to answer your call. Like, everybody was complaining about how long it would take the police to get somewhere, or if
Oh,
something was happening and the police was over there, you got to call the police. Like,
but
they wouldn't even step in.
that's a strategy for police, because what they
Mhm.
get is called a consent to a consent, something like that, disclosure.
Uh-huh.
Well, when they get basically too many flags of police misconduct, the government will send somebody to investigate, and they'll
Right.
give them a list of changes they have to make within a time period. So what the police will do is that they'll stop doing their job
Mm-hmm.
completely. Either they can beat your ass, beat and tase you, or they just can't do their job. There's no doing your job right. They got to beat your ass. So if they can't do that, they just stop doing their job. So now the crime rate's going to spike because they're already in hot inner city areas where it's poor. The crime
Mm-hmm.
rate spikes. That's the justification for them to put more police in the street. More police gotta stretch out that consent form. People could be on a consent disclosure form for like 20 years almost. LAPD's been on there for 20 years. The beginning extended for 20 years.
Right.
So for Baltimore, just even after that, I know that the moment they stopped doing policing, that was literally the strategy. Police officers said, "Hey, half my cops quit because the moment they get investigated, they already know you're gonna get fired. You can't get no more job. You're gonna lose your press. You're gonna lose your pay."
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say, luckily, what happened here during that time, crime did not spike
Oh, okay.
because it was just, I think it was such a polarizing moment that I'm sure crime was still happening, but it didn't, like, the city didn't go crazy.
Yeah,
Now,
they're going
the stuff
chaos.
that you saw on TV were like blurbs of what happened, but it wasn't like total catastrophe in the city. And the news and the police department was making it seem like people couldn't walk out their house, or they couldn't, we couldn't do anything. And it was actually more peaceful. You saw more people kind of banding together and having more conversations together and such. And it wasn't, as heightened as they made it out to be. But it's dangerous, because they really have the pulse of, if they were to pull back as a whole, just imagine if all the police officers in Atlanta just pull back. Just imagine what crime that would ensue. But they know they have that type of power, but should they? Like here, our police department will now be under the jurisdiction of the mayor's office, which is going to be very interesting.
Very interesting indeed that
Right.
now, the police chief doesn't have just the totalitarian rule to just make decisions on his own whim.
Hmm. And I'm
But
I'm nervous for that, but is that what we need? Do we need to have control over that department of the government? Because that's still a part of the government, whether you look at it or not. But I don't think they should have total rule. And what you said
yeah,
earlier, as us as Black people, I've always had this question: do we want equality, or do we want ultimate power?
we, we,
And
we,
that's been a confusing. Like, do we want to be treated equally, or do we want to be in control?
I mean, we most of the time, the people who want general, like they want general to be treated equally, and if they don't want to be treated equally, they want to go someplace where they can be. And
Mm,
sometimes I think you got the group of us who they want to take this system and make it work to our benefit and make it our system. You got
right.
some of us who I want nothing to do with this system, and I just want to get my money so I can go someplace where I can just do what I want.
I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, I don't want anything to do with this system. And the issue is that a lot of the people in the forefront, who are making these big campaign pushes for Black liberation, they want a piece of that system. So they're going to convince us and tell us about this Black spending power to get us to spend money and to show our power politically. When really, a lot of these companies do that just to get white sponsorship or to show their white business partners that they can generate income. So we're really
Mm.
just a stepping stone for certain people in our community, and it's not really our liberation, but it's just their money, and
When
it's
I
conscious pimping.
knew, and there's been plenty of instances, but when I knew culturally we was up Shit's Creek, and I'm not saying permanently, is when I walked into Michael's, the craft store, and they had a Black History section. And I said to myself, like, where and when did this happen, and why is it happening? And it was so generic prints on paper towels and colors and t-shirt. It's almost like our struggle has been usurp into a marketing strategy for
Yeah,
others to get more money.
yeah. We
You know,
wanted, we
mhm,
wanted, oh, we want black this and black everything, and then
right.
what they did was we're gonna sell you black stuff.
Do you think we need so looking at some of the black organizations that we have that are national, like the NAACP or the I cannot never remember the name of them. Um, or Black Lives Matter. Do you think we need those, or do you think they need to be reshaped like our government does?
I think a lot of our organizations need to be reshaped completely and need to
Hmm.
be community based. They need to be like, they had the New Era Detroit, and they've been branching off to a few cities. You had the NFA. They were like
Hmm.
a gun club. They had went to the Klan headquarters in something Georgia, I think. They were
Right.
like a couple hundred strong. Um, Again, me personally, I feel there are a lot of different groups for the community, and they fill different functions. I just think they all need to be for the community. I think that's where we need to stop. And honestly, it's the media's fault because, like, when you do research, there's like a crap ton of black gun clubs,
Hmm.
poor gun clubs, where you have all types of races who come together because the commonality is us having more sovereign control of our actual country versus the government having just overreach to be able to make decisions on our behalf, like our political power. So you have a lot of groups like that. A lot of people don't know there wasn't just Black Panthers, there was Pink Panthers, White Panthers, you have Brown
Hmm.
Panthers. It was a whole council of Panthers, like Wakanda for
Hmm.
real. That you have a lot of instances where there are a lot of black groups that are doing things for the community 100% for the community, by the community, like the community gardens, the
Hmm.
classes. But we don't focus on that. We like to focus on a black bourgeoisie because they have the money, they have the
Hmm.
advertisement, and the politicians. Like Jay-Z, he's a big thing where he speaks of black liberation, but he's not speaking of black liberation. He's black
Hmm.
capitalist, and he's speaking
Right.
on getting money off of poor black folk. He did all that for Colin Kaepernick for years and did all that campaigning just to be sitting with the NFL signing a deal.
He's basically the entertainment director.
And he did all that to say that he's going to get more black people to perform and this and the third. But who does that help? Who
We
who
were
who could?
already the better performers, so you're not. I,
That's
Rihanna doing a halftime show does not make anything better for us in this country. And that's not taking anything away from her. I don't want the Rihanna tribe or the Nickies or anything like that after me, but it doesn't make us any better off.
it's like congratulations. I mean, we know black music is some of the most popular music in existence. We can't help that. But at the
Hmm.
same token, like that's what they do. They'll have these like placeholder representatives of the black community versus actual people in our community who are really doing things.
Right.
That's why I get mad when it's like, yo, man, we got to pool all our money together and support black business. But what does that business do if what does me supporting a clothing line have to do with the community?
So okay, that's my point of contention. So not that it has anything to do with community. Well, I'm not gonna say it that way. We have to begin to support black business for the sake of our communities. Only if that business pours back into that community.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So if you are, and I'm not saying because you may live, there are businesses that I support on the internet that are in other places. I'm not saying that because there are things that we need as individuals that you may not be able to find in a black supplier as of now or
Right.
at this point. But I believe that creating that ecosystem amongst our own businesses, you will go buy a t-shirt anyway. Why not buy it from somebody who looks like you, who is benefiting you? But that is contingent on that person pouring back into their community.
Well, I say it like this. God, maybe I didn't want to sound so broad to say
Hmm.
like supporting. Nothing wrong with supporting your man clothing line because like there's a guy in your neighborhood. He's trying to get some money. And you want to support
Right.
a dude in your community.
I mean, I think that's what we all should try to do anyway, locally.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's where it matters. Like right there in the community, we see, hey, this brother selling T-shirts, man. Yeah, support your man. But
Right.
locally, that matters because locally he can make money, and y'all are getting T-shirts. This is an exchange of value. All
Right.
right. Then now, say when you start selling something, you can sell it to your homie. Now y'all doing two businesses that are split funding each other. Y'all
Mm-hmm.
going to business together. But if the community all works together, we're fostering an environment where us as a community, you start fulfilling our own needs without
Right.
the government.
Are
Oh
you
man,
familiar? Are you familiar with Charles Village?
Charles Village.
That's
No.
along Charles Street. So that community is considered Baltimore's Chinatown.
Mm,
I know that's very disrespectful, but that's what it was considered. It was considered the Asian community in the city. Like that was their part of their hub. So now all up and down Charles Street above North Avenue, they're nothing but black beauticians, black owned restaurants. It's still an Asian community there, but it's mostly black and brown, black, Hispanic, Arab, uh, owned stores, beauty shops. We even got a black beauty shop that just opened up. Black restaurants. Where I live, along the strip where I live, that's kind of perpendicular to Charles Street. It is a number of black owned businesses, and they have clothing stores. Like within the city, like in this area, there's nowhere to really shop. There's no big box stores outside of Mondawmin, and that's on the other side of 83.
yeah.
Or downtown is not really even a shopping district anymore. A lot of the stores have been closed down. So the
Oh
closest
wow.
thing is Towson, um, uh, in terms of market. So this has become the space where the homegirl has either opened up a hair shop or a beauty or a boutique. And it's for me, it is great. But if those people then get in their cars at the end of the day, close up their shop and go out to Owens Mills to live, it's not that's the money that I just invested in them is not benefiting my community. It's
Right.
benefiting someone else. That's where I have the issue. And not that everybody has to live in a city, but I believe in social social for profit companies. And I'm not gonna say the biggest one we know is Whole Foods. They're not a nonprofit. They're actually for profit, but they have a nonprofit mission. So those are the types of organizations that I want to support because that means something of profit that they're making is going back into something in their community. Now we have to be more specific as to what that something is, but I feel like that's why we need to bring back, and you see it in plenty of places. The underground in Atlanta is
Yeah.
turning into a black co-op space for black businesses, and there's another one in Atlanta as well. I think it's even outside of Atlanta. I think like in Bankhead or something, where they turn what used to be just a regular mall into a black hub or black strip malls, or you know. And I think that's important. One, because our young people need to see that, so they learn what entrepreneurship is, but also we have to now hold those types of businesses accountable to pour back into the community and not just, you go buy something else from somebody else. Yes, that too, but actually doing things like making their voices heard so the school systems in that area are
And,
not
and
poor
that
or impoverished and such.
and that's the important thing too. I agree that like I feel like both are hand in hand. Like if you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have a bunch more focus on black business, then black business has to leverage black politics and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and social reform and those
Mm-hmm.
types of policies in place that work to the advantage of the common man. Because the common man, your customer base, if your customer base is living in a much stable environment where their needs are met and it's not destroying their livelihood, more
Right.
than likely to be able to shop with you locally because they don't have to worry about how they're going to eat or bathe or sleep tonight,
Right.
And I don't. Once we learn to leverage that as a community, and it's not that we don't, is that what they'll do, the powers that be, they get someone that look like us but don't care about our individual interests. They just want to
Mm-hmm.
help themselves to push laws and policies that under the guise seem like they're helping us, but really are helping the powers that be have more money to pull more money out of social reform that's
Right.
affecting the local person. So even like with our we started a bunch of black businesses. Then they start putting higher tax on small businesses. First people getting affected is us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
Directly affected.
so now what that did was that's an entire economic base that could have gave some people some jobs just locally. Like we can't do anything nationally because we don't make enough money nationally to completely be independent of white employership. They make up.
But we do, and that's the weird part. We say that, but we ultimately do. And if we don't as of yet, we could.
I mean,
If we brought more of those businesses together, like in the Black Commerce, if you go to the Black Chamber of Commerce, like it's
no,
tons of like really successful business owners
no,
that are
not
just in their own bubble.
this not I'm not saying that there aren't a bunch of business owners who can employ black people. That's not what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Like when you look at general employment in the United States, 88% of people employed are still employed by white owned and white ran businesses and
So
of
you mean it's
primary
more so like
functions.
we don't have a Black Amazon?
But we don't have a black equivalent to like necessities. We don't have black power companies that can have every black person with power. We don't have a black distributor of food. We don't have a black mass chain of supermarkets. We don't have those. And it's not that we can't have those, it's just that in order for us to have those, because I think this is something actually weaponized against us. I was researching this recently with
Hmm.
when they say, you know, our buying powers $1 trillion, right?
Right.
Do you know that's never been quantified? And in the one place that was said in, it was said in this Black Woman's Wealth book, something she was selling, mind you, where she learned it from a Howard student about our buying
Because
power.
you got to make your
And
money.
you know what's crazy? When people researched about this Howard student who said that, he didn't
Hmm.
exist. There was
Mm.
no record of him going to Howard. And when you look at it, when you look at how much money we'd have to make, because say that buying power, they took it. They don't put it in the fact that it's not the fact that we don't make money per capita. It's the fact we don't have wealth. So that means that all that money we
Right.
made, we don't even get to have that money because we're spending it. So we're saying we have 1 billion buying power. That's what we make. But meanwhile, the reason why we don't have money like that or wealth isn't because of money. It's because of home ownership. It's because of policies that kept us from owning homes, aka politics, wealth,
Mhm.
homes, resources, food, being in food deserts, not being far away from certain. All of that has far more of an effect of why we weren't able to attain wealth than just
Mhm.
us not having the business. Because if you think about it, we had the resources when they didn't destroy all our homes in Tulsa or they weren't annihilating all our black communities. We would have been fine. We had black theaters, we had black things back then, but it was systemic destruction of our black economic base.
And not just the systematic, as you said, but the unity fell apart along with that. We began to lick our wounds and go to our own corners of the world instead of and was it Tulsa or it was one of them where they actually rebuilt the city and it happened again. And it
I mean,
like that idea that together we are so much stronger. We don't have to like each other. We don't necessarily have to get along, but for the purpose of us moving forward, we have to put those things aside. And I think we're great at destroying our own self or our own systems, our own way. And I see, and even saying that, there are pockets where you're seeing it steadily grow.
yeah,
When you try to go, it's more so a click. So you can't really be a part of it because they got to vet you. They got to, and that's great. But we have to break down a lot of those systems that have kept us from moving forward in the political realm because more so it's just you showing up. If you show up, the amount of money you have matters, but not as much as your voice.
yeah.
We see that in them now changing voter laws because we showed up. And now, oh shit, they showed up. So now we got to decrease because we know they don't like waiting in lines. So now when you waiting in lines, you And there used to be organizations that would come around and give out water or food. You can't even do that. So because that should show us the voice and power we have simply in us showing up. Not all those
Showing up.
people were independently wealthy that showed up and voted, but that now they're saying that we either got to steer them and create this smoke and mirrors over here, or, and rather, we have to shrink the amount of voting slots that we have, or, how, they let convicts now vote, but now they got to go through a loophole, or they got to go through a certain way to even vote again. But I just, I just need us to get it together, because I just feel like we are running out of time.
I mean, if you want to be 1,000, man, it hit the fan a long. It hit the fan a long time ago, bro. I keep it.
Yeah, but
I,
it felt like we still had possibilities. It felt like the possibilities are because the wealthy ones of us are getting wealthier, and the ones that of us that was like hanging on to the middle class are now dropping down to the, I don't want to call them the lower class, but in poverty.
oh yeah, the middle class died. Like
Hmm.
when the
Yeah,
first housing crisis happened. I mean, because a lot of
right.
people realize that you're not middle class the moment you don't own a home because you don't have the wealth to just go out here and buy a new home.
Yeah. And something was said to me similar to that when I made the choice to let go of the home that I had. And I don't regret it because, I was too young to even understand what that meant. But it was
Yeah.
still a space of just not, being told that. And I was told that by a black woman. She's like, well, you just lost, you lost your status. Now you don't have a big enough voice. And she was trying to keep me from selling it, but it just wasn't set up. It wasn't set up. And many of us don't go into adulthood knowing what money really is, how to
Yeah.
really use it, what not to do. And then you have to add on that other animal of credit and figure that like it's just too much we're not being taught. And I'm not
And
saying in school, I'm not saying just at home, but it's a lot of stuff that's being kept from us purposely.
yeah, I mean, then people, you got to spend money to learn credit from somebody who knows credit. You got to spend money to build your credit. You got to spend money, but learning how to manage money while spending money. It's
Why not having money?
like
Because
I'm
what happens
broke.
when you don't have it? You just don't have it to spend. We used to all depend on a credit repair person. That's been labeled as a scam now because it's not really anything that you couldn't do yourself for free, like you said.
Yeah, because I mean, it's a scam because a lot of these guys, all they do is just send like letters to challenge things on your credit
Right.
report. But if they're valid, they're going to keep getting denied. So there's nothing that they can do but hope that they don't respond to it. So they have to remove it. But most of the
Well, I,
time,
I learned why that is because we are only taught about TransUnion, Experian, or Equifax when
yeah,
there are other credit bureaus that aren't known, widely known, where when they send those letters or when you yourself say this is not mine or this is wrong, they go to them to validate that there is a debt or there is. So when they validate it with them, then yeah.
they're going to
So
validate it. So regardless, it's getting validated. So no
right.
matter what you do, you know, man, no, eventually you're hoping for that one day in 10 years, which is going to drop off your credit report anyway. So you've been spending money for almost a decade getting
Yep.
pimped. And that's the name of the game, is getting pimped.
Yep.
That's the
And
name
that
of the game.
and that's when you were talking about the person who wrote it in a book and was charging for it. I'm not saying we need to just get everything for free, but a lot of this information is free. It's just buried in so much bureaucracy and
Yeah.
foolishness that you don't know how to get out of it. It's just not the lie that they tell us about going to college. College is not expensive if you don't have money. College is only expensive if you go to school and don't know what the hell you want to do. And you spend your first 3 years pissing it off, sleeping around, smoking, not going to class. It's only expensive when you don't do what you have to do.
Yeah, because most of the time there's so many social incentives to go to college that if you're passing your classes, you're pretty much getting paid to go to school.
And see, and that's the lie. And there's a conversation around that that I definitely want to have, but I'm tired of hearing people. Well, th- schools are a corporation as well, so let's
Oh
not
yeah,
act like they're not a money making machine too. But if you teach your children what to do, or
yeah.
maybe you don't need to go to school. Maybe you're gonna find it when you turn 30, and you need to just work yourself and figure out what you want to do, and then go back to school. But just telling us to cut ourselves off, go get a trade. A trade is supposed to be what you use to get further, not the end all be all.
I
Like
mean,
that's not,
we gotta teach kids individually. I mean, because
yeah.
like you may want to go to college because you know college has a specific job that you need a degree for. But major thing is sometimes you get that experience you may not get just going to a job corps, where job corps may teach you a trade, but you don't have work experience, or either
Um,
or. Or I
yeah,
mean, there's no right or
yeah.
wrong path I feel, but like there's a way to do that and all. Like college, going to college isn't just an instant success, and college isn't an instant debt. It's only that when you're going, like you say, you're going to college, switching your majors, you're not passing classes. You know, if you
Hmm.
fail a class, you got paid for it outright. Financial aid won't cover
Right.
it, so you're
And
spending
we've all
money.
been there.
You're spending money you do not have, trying
Right.
to make sure you can still go to school and do it right again. When if
But
you were passing all your classes, getting your
right.
financial aid money, then your financial
Yeah.
aid would have covered it. Then whatever you had extra, you might have been, be able to a couple $100 maybe. You go get some food, last
Hmm.
you a semester till you get
Right.
paid again.
But even in that system, we have to change how we and why we go to school. No longer can we go to school so we can get a good job.
That's
Like
true.
that system was done with our parents. Is That's gone
People
because
get good
jobs
jobs
are
without school.
right. Like for me, and the reason why I push everybody to at least try college because one, it's a networking tool. Some of the people that you meet in college become your lifelong friends, and not just if you join a sorority or fraternity, but simply because you meet people who are going in similar directions. And it allows you to narrow down. It wasn't until I began to enjoy the college experience that I started meeting the people that got me in line with what I wanted to be versus me going initially to be a nurse and I don't like blood and I don't like wiping people's asses. So
Right.
that was never going to work for me. I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I tried every level of education. Wasn't for me. And I was doing things for a job and not for my career of something that I really felt passionate about.
Right.
I joined both the nursing and the educational field because they told me they needed more black men. That's not a reason to go to school because they
Right.
need more black men in the field. Like that's not a And I think culturally we have gotten ourselves into a space where we work hard for a job. And there's nothing wrong with making a $9 to $5, but if that's not what you want, that now needs to be usurped into a strategy to get you where you really want to go.
That
And I
just be
and I
stepping
always
stone.
just think
Yeah.
college could be that thing. Say it again.
No, I said no. I was agreeing. My fault. I think that
Hmm.
that's a stepping stone. Like it should be used as like a stepping stone of what you really want to do, not just
Right,
like what the settling point. But
right,
we are taught just college. College is the end goal. Most people, to be honest, most of their goals have nothing to do with college. Like most people, when they want to do something, they just want to do it. And we're
right,
in an age now where I think more and more people are realizing, like prime example, I draw. But if you really want to be good at drawing, I don't have to go to school to learn to draw. Like, granted, self-teaching yourself takes a level of discipline. Or if you want to play
right.
piano, if you want to be a poet, you can just practice and study off the internet. You can hone your craft to be a professional level
If you
artist.
have that level of what's the word, accountability, or if you have that type of regiment inside of you. Some people need to be sit their ass in a classroom and be told this is
Yeah.
the basics or the foundation of this. Now you take this and you create your own path with it. Some
Some
people need that.
some people need a classroom environment. That's why
Hmm.
college for some people. Some
Right.
people don't. They have that in them, and I think they use those
Hmm.
people who don't, who have that in them, as like the standard for people who legitimately may need to go to college. They need that
Right,
classroom environment. They need that
right.
networking. Some people just can network. Some people just got that in them. There's some people
And
just gonna be like
what I
that.
found in people, the ones who naturally have it in them, sometimes they need that discipline. Just like going to the army or studying law, it's not about you becoming a lawyer or you becoming a Marine. It's the discipline that
Yeah.
you sometimes need to incorporate with that natural ability. And that's where school and higher education comes in for me. And that's why I say sometimes you don't even finish, but you've gotten that structure of networking or discipline of regiment uh, in you. And you sometimes leave and you become a better human being as if you just muscled your way through. And then at 40, you got it. You know, where some
Right.
people they don't have it and they need that 13th grade to get it together. And that
They need
sometimes helps
they need
them
the
to
extra.
kind of find purpose because ultimately our historically right now, well, historically, I think we did more with bridging our history to our present. But right now, you have people who don't know basic things culturally. And that's because their parents didn't have it. Now they don't have it. Their children or whoever they come in contact won't have it either. And I say that in a way where it's possible for them to get it. But the way things are going, it seems like we won't get it as a collective. And that's scary to me. That's very that's and I saw little signs of it. If you're in the school system, you'll see children don't have the imagination that we once had. Like sometimes it affects how you move forward in life if you don't have those basic things that a child naturally has, and to be inquisitive or to have imagination. Those are things that translated into adulthood makes you fearless, makes you stronger. And I'm seeing it right now. Children can't even imagine things in a classroom setting. So what do you
Right.
think is going to happen to them in 10, 15, 20 years? And we're seeing the signs of that already in people as adults. Um, so yeah, this understanding black politics and religion, the reason I added religion to it really was to really show that it's so much more than that. So we can
Hmm.
put those two big things up and say these are our issues as black people. But when you start going digging a little bit deeper down, you start realizing there's more wrong with the structure of who we are as a culture
Yeah, and
than
we're a
these two
product
big
of a
things.
burning building, like Martin Luther King said. Like our
Mm,
culture is literally a response to being in a burning system. The system in itself is built on people's oppression. So the more people
mm,
are gradually trying to fight for their rights, we're breaking the very foundation of the system. It does not operate as the
mm,
country we know it as when people are given equal opportunity. It
mm.
won't, and that's the unfortunate part. So we're fighting. We're basically fighting the foundation of the United States and trying to get people to understand the bigger issue.
And that to me, they've never tried to really erase our history. And so I say the last 20 years or so because now we are getting it in numbers now, not just pockets or the one black person that seems to rise through the concrete of the inner city, but we're starting to get it in ways and it's accessible. So that's why now they want to control the internet. The textbooks, it used to be glimpses of ourselves in it. Now they want to erase so little
Complete.
Tommy doesn't feel bad about his history and the people that's in his history, which is
Right.
dumb and crazy, but is their perspective. I got to keep these people from knowing that they have the real control and power. So I'm
Right.
gonna just erase them. I'm gonna erase any semblance of who they were.
I used to talk to white people. He just say that when I moved to Georgia, and like we'll be having a cool conversation, and then it just always made it the race somehow. Somehow we always got to talk about somehow some way we got to talk about race, and
It's
it'll
essential. It's essential. The nucleus of everything. We can deny it,
yeah.
but that's the truth.
Yeah, I had to talk. That always comes up. They get to talking. Yeah, man. I mean, black and white, man. I think this racism, man. I just wish it would just go away, man. I'm telling you, they stopped teaching it in schools. What?
But see, when we used to hear stuff like that, then it should have just sent off all alarms. All the smoke
Like,
alarms should have went off.
because
But
every
we
time
would
I
laugh
hear
it
it,
off.
I always have to go on this long diatribe of like explaining why not teaching history is a big problem. I'm
But
like,
see, they didn't connect. They didn't connect what has happened to us to history. They
they
always look at it from where we presently are.
they don't want to look at it as history and then say get over it. But dog, that's history, big dog.
Yep, that's
Like
history.
that you want to know history. Well, why did that law happen or that law happen? Because this that
Hmm.
no, because they didn't want to free slaves. It had
But
nothing to do
they
with
always
slaves.
tell us, well, they always pick out our fave five. Look at, you know, Martin Luther King had a doctorate, and look at Oprah, and look at da da da. But those are the ones you allowed to matriculate, so you can say to us, hey, look, that's what you can be, while
Well,
holding us back.
not realizing that the fact that you have to find the most known and celebrity black people you can find to try to downplay me simply telling you that a lot of us are poor and it's simply due to the design and circumstance of this country. And it's like, well, no, well, look at that person. He's making it. He's an exception to the rule. He is not the standard. And you know that.
But
And you know that.
and I want to say they don't. And I say they don't because maybe our grandparents and our parents, those people in that time, in terms of white people their ages, they got it. But their children are being brought up in a space. I used the example of that one class of Black history that I got, and it wasn't Black history, it was speaking about slavery. And so imagine the seed that was planted into all those other cultures that was in that classroom. It had to have been about 30 of us in that room, and only
When they're,
two of us in that room were Black.
when they're trying to brush past slavery as if it just didn't happen that bad.
Well, he and I can laugh about it now, but it was hurtful then. He equated us to farm equipment. He said, would you beat your tractor when it didn't work? So why would you beat your slave when it didn't work? And I said, well, sir, like, there's proof that it happened.
Right. There's documentation.
There's documentation, there's slave narratives, there's slave interviews. This movie that Will Smith just made, that's an actual person. That's not just a mythical creature
That's
that
that's
just popped out of nowhere.
that,
That photo is one of the most widely connected images to slavery that we ever have. Everybody has seen that image.
and that's what the movie's based on. That
Yes,
his back of him getting whipped in slavery,
yes.
the scars that
That's
were on his
our
back.
true history, sir. So I and as I've gotten this platform, it has made me want to go back in time and pull those types of people out. But I'm sure, and I'm trying to remember that man's name. He was white. He probably like in his late 20s teaching that. And I always wanted to interview him and show him like images like that. Like, do you know what you did to these people? Like, that's the type of journalist that I want to be. I want to
Yeah,
go back and pull those people that I experienced and say, hey, you know you got that wrong, right? Do you know you got that wrong? Or do
uh,
you really, who
you,
taught you that to make you believe it?
you know you were lying to me at the
Right.
time. Like you were blatantly lying. Oh well, it wasn't that bad. Did you beat your tractor? Well, they whipped their horses, and I know you
Yes,
see people pulling whip the horses and have the
right.
little the shoes. That's why they had the spike on the shoes. That's so they can stab the horse to run faster.
That day, his face is in my mind, etched in my mind forever. The uncomfortable laughter in the classroom is etched into my mind. And he went a little bit further. So that was slavery. The same classroom, moments later, we got onto segregation. He described segregation by telling me and the young man, I still remember his name, Kojo. Y'all go stand out in the hallway. And in the hallway, I can hear we dumb because we did it. I can hear him say that's what segregation is. And I'm in my mind today, not saying whether this man was racist or not. He really thought what he was doing was, okay, I have to teach this. So I may be uncomfortable teaching this. So let me just try to do this the best way. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt as I got older. And all I can say is how many people outside of me and Kojo went and found out the truth or found out the truth at some point, or and versus how many of them are now those Republicans or individuals that want us to shut up about slavery because it wasn't that bad.
It wasn't
Like
that bad.
that's still a recurrent issue in my head. And because I can't remember that man's name, I have never been able to find him. But that is my goal in life, to interview him and sit him down on any type of platform and let him know. Tell because I've told that story on several different platforms. I want to say it to him and I want to hear his response because it's probably going to be a real white apology, but I
Oh well,
want to just hear it.
I look, man. I didn't mean anything by it. I just wanted. It's like this insensitivity to the fact that you kind of try to
Those were
downplay.
just the times, nigga. That was like 2000.
You feel
That
me? Like that
wasn't
wasn't that long ago.
right. It had to have been about 2000 because I finished in 2001. So it had to have been like 2099. Like, sir, like,
Like, nigga, it wasn't that long ago, bro.
no, it wasn't. It wasn't. What times are you referring to? And I've played this conversation in my head, the weirdness that I am. I played it and I can see his face. He looked like one of them good old boys.
Mm-hmm.
And I could see him being very aware of the classroom as he was talking about it. And none of this was like stuff he put on the board. There were no dittos he handed out. There was no section in the book, our history book.
He was a
But
freestyler.
he was just
He was a
oh my god,
freestyler.
he
He's
was
like,
just going off the top of his
I,
head
I,
at that
I
point.
I bet you in that book there was a nice little chunking section of Black history and slavery. He said, "Well, I ain't reading this. Let me tell these niggas something real quick, 5 minutes,
I
get them
could
out of here."
imagine that's him doing his lesson plan the night before. Like, well, I'm just, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna
I'm, I'm
just go
freestyling,
off the top.
honey. I am not about to go to these Negroes trying to lie about their history. I'm not
But
gonna do
the weird part, it was just me and the one other black kid. It had to be like 30 other people in the room.
it
And
because
it was just me and one other person in that one
that
classroom.
probably made it more awkward that it was only two of you. Imagine like if it was a whole class of Black people, he had no choice. He had to be as
Right.
accurate as possible. Somebody in that room got some parents that love them in this Black school, and they ain't going for it. Even
When
about predominant.
when he got to the segregation part, he told us go stand out in the hallway. And I remember saying to Kojo, I'm about to leave. I said, I'm leaving. I'm not going back in that classroom. And I remember going to my locker, getting my belongings, and I got in trouble, but I walked out the building. I said, I'm not listening to this. I've never walked out of a building or ran out of a building before. And I just said, I can't, this can't be honest.
I'm
And I
going
was like,
home.
it felt like a moment where you was like, is this happening? Did I not wake up? Is there a alarm clock that's about to go off? All this was going through my mind only because I've gotten this level of history before. So I knew what truth was, and I knew this
Right.
wasn't it. And the fact that you, as a grown, educated man, will stand up in front of a classroom, predominantly white classroom, and speak this level of dishonesty. So these people are, we remember stuff that we learned. We remember school songs, and why wouldn't this be something that you then planted in these boys' heads, and now they're somewhere discriminated against one of their employees because they feel like they're too black or they're being too racially insensitive to them.
That's what makes it devilish to me, because it's like, bro, you didn't even come with like an educated response. I'm telling you, man, he had a note card that he wrote down, and he was
He
gonna go
didn't
over
read off it. It might have been on his desk. He might have memorized those 3 lines, and that was it.
and that note card had 2 bullet points. Make it quick. Don't know details.
They can't say I'm
Slavery,
lying.
segregation. And that was literally, he moved on. The class, I think our class was like 45 minutes long. He moved on. He went to slavery, segregation, not civil rights movement, slavery, segregation. And I can honestly, even as a grown man, I can tell he was nervous because he kept eye contact with me and Kojo. We were sitting in the back of the room, and I could watch him trying to gauge and it was snickering, and so I felt embarrassed, one, but it was still that sense of, yo, you going hard right now. Okay, I
I'm
got you.
trying.
Yeah, it's weird. But as we close out today, I really wanted to, I thought this was going to be uncomfortable, and not because I judge you, but I just know sometimes these conversations can be very separating
Yeah.
because you really learn someone's nature in the midst of it. But I still stand on, I don't feel like the black church is safe for us right now because they're copying the same behavior that we're seeing in places like Florida, where they're taking parts of the story out
Yeah.
and only leaving their narrative intact.
They
And it's
bastardized
unsafe.
something that's ours,
Right.
basically.
It's very unsafe. And in terms of politics, I still equate that to the skeleton of this country. And
Yeah.
and we are in bad shape right now. We're in really bad shape because I can tell how much we are growing as black people because they're moving things, stuff that they would be underhanded with. They're now having press conferences about when he said that out loud. And you may, I don't know if you heard it, but that's why him and Erica Badu is being brought into it because she was remarking on it in an interview. And the
Mhm.
idea of this is where woke people come to die. Like that is one of those sound bites that is just in my head. But we have to create a voice, and it's already been created. We have to continue it. Keep going
Yeah.
out and voting. Keep talking to those family members that big up a Trump or something. Keep having conversations with them and showing them how their rhetoric and the rhetoric that they're pushing is damaging to not only us as we live today, is damaging to our history already. Anytime you take books out of a school system
It's dangerous.
that have been staples, it's dangerous. That is fascism at its best. That is, we might as well all go back to the old Cuba and turn this into one big old 1957 Cuba. If that's what we're going to be burning books and taking out history.
And
So
that's where it's heading if we don't jump in front of it. That's the common denominator in all this. If black people don't take more reign in our political power, not about our buying power. Buying power, our political power matters. Because
right,
our political power
you
puts
showing
weight
up.
is showing up.
Hmm.
Because once the political power is in play and these policies work in the favor of those who are not rich, aka most of us,
Hmm.
then we can worry about making money because we already make money. We already start businesses, but policies have to work in our favor.
Right.
And the same thing with religion. Religion can't take advantage of the downtrodden to suit their own ends and needs when it's supposed to be in service of the people that live around them.
Allegedly.
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 But we have to use both to our advantage. I mean, there's churches who are very positive in terms of their political activity in their community. They use they have voting sections, they'll teach classes. Like the church can be both super positive or super negative, but
Hmm.
we can't allow our spirituality to be weaponized so the powers that be, our enemies, can use them to try to use black faces as a way to get white policies and white um bills passed that affect us negatively.
Because it's forcing us to rely too much on false hope
Yeah.
and just sitting there, please don't let him win. Please don't let him win instead of getting up. and voicing that concern and that irritation with someone like this being able to play in our face.
Yeah.
And he's indicted, and his lawyers are going to find some loophole to get him off. And he's going to be able to go and build that presidential library and plan in our face.
And plant lies right in our face.
Plant lies right in our face that we eat up. See, I knew Clinton was eating babies. I knew Obama didn't live like this is attack on our intelligence,
right,
and our sensibilities as we continue to believe foolishness like this. I feel like I'm watching a cartoon. I have not watched the news in so long. I only get bits and pieces of it as I need to be informed. But I can't. Now the AI world is going to take control, and everything's going to be.
We almost can't even be mad if it does, because look at the people in charge now. AI may come, at least it's ruled by logic, no matter how scary that may be, and who they deem as an entity, it's ruled by logic. I mean,
yeah.
Right now we got fools just making decisions for just reasons.
Just no reason. Just because they can defend, or they can say, or they can change. We have people that, like, even just a slight bit on a gun, we have people who are trying to use the fact that someone has a mental disorder as a reason for them not to have gun laws or stricter gun laws.
And it's like, bro, instead of you trying to make the gun law stricter, why don't you stop allowing people to have violent or mental medical records of mental issues, or a documented history of mental health issues? They shouldn't be allowed to have a gun. You shouldn't be able to just go into a pawn shop and then say I got 300 and grab a pistol. There should be background checks. I mean,
now they have more ammunition because of the last school shooting. The person was considered to be allegedly trans. So now that's the smoke and mirrors. Mental disorder out the picture. Them trans people. That's why we didn't trust them. They're out there shooting up schools.
Yeah, and now that's going to be the excuse for why all these different groups of people are going to have policies pushed and things done, when you're not going to look at how these people are being bullied due to an entire social rhetoric that makes these people othered and ostracized. And we're not going to address the problem that causes the problem. We're just going to keep shooting at the problem.
They never, that point, I don't care on either side, it's never brought up. Like, and not that's cause and justification for them doing it, but every single situation, it started from some bullying or some person feeling like other. And now you're using the other status to say, hey, see, them trans people out there shooting up schools. The first one.
But there was no policy pushed on teenage white boys. None. All these Justin Bieber looking ass boys that's out here shooting up malls, schools. Like we're not gonna do. There was a YouTuber that's legendary who went crazy one day and just started killing people. And he's praised in the red pill community, and he's praised as the incel king. Like, they praise him. Oh, hello.
They're watching us now.
Oh, man.
They're watching.
Yeah, man.
Time to start speaking gibberish.
He said,
but
he asked if he can join.
Email us. Are you on? What is he on? He's on YouTube. Look us up on Facebook and send me a message. Send me your information on Facebook. I'd love to have your point of view. But we're actually about to close out. Next week's show is, I think, I have to commend you. You did a great job of putting these in order, because one seems to be, I guess that's the journalist in you. He's gonna start coming with his bow tie on.
I mean, I'm come a little correct. You know what I mean?
His Byron Allen outfit on. But the next one, and the screen just went off. The next conversation is going to be on Black success, or the kind of the cause of it, or the detriment of it, rather, of Black success. And that is my, and it actually says the negative image of Black success. Um, and I have a lot of examples. One being the only way we can be successful is if we sell parts of ourselves off, which is the lie we got to be an Illuminati. So
Oh yeah, we had to have made a deal with Baphomet or
right,
some weird Christian demon god, even if I don't believe in Christianity. So
yep.
I okay.
So that's next week's conversation. Uh, Join us. And any last minute remarks before we end?
Nah, man, I think I ain't gonna lie to you. Whoever's flagging these convos, bro, I just feel like they just feel really challenged. That's all I can say because I don't understand the negative of these conversations. I don't get it.
I don't tag. I tag the person that's joining the conversation. That's it. I don't tag people. I don't overly share. Um, I share where I belong, where I'm a member of, and I can tell when it comes from certain places because then it's not there anymore, and
Mhm.
it's where I put it at. But yeah, so I'm not. At first I was really defeated because it took me a long time to even get the platform monetized. So now
Yeah.
you're dealing with that. But that's Facebook dangling their morality carrot in front of you, wanting you to stay in this narrow line. And if I have to say it, I have to say it. So just look forward to the Artist Exchange website coming really soon because I'm gonna just have to move everything there so I'm not in danger of speaking my mind.
Right. And I'm same thing. That's why I started doing stuff on YouTube as well.
Hmm.
For the same reason. Because,
Right.
so but again, man, these combos are awesome.
Hmm.
This has been a blast. Definitely talk about things and touch on a lot of things that people are really sensitive about. Um,
Right.
I'm a fan of the other show. I watched I Am She podcast finally. Y'all definitely need to go to.
And see that,
Absolutely.
and you see how wild that gets, and never been flagged, not one time.
Right. Like it's never been crazy. But when it
Mm-mm.
comes to this, we try to have good intellectual
They
convo.
see two black men that's having a conversation. Shut them down.
Oh no.
Uh, But we definitely will be back next Friday, same time. Different conversation. Week 6, the negative image of Black success. And sir, I need you to send me some of those images. I got a glimpse of some of your drawings. I think you were on a live. They need to see this, sir. Come share.
Oh
Sharing is
yeah.
caring.
Yeah, I'm me on Instagram is Black Dog Comics. I'll send you the page for real
Okay.
because everything goes to the page. But yeah, I'll send it to you. My bad. I'm not that
I'll
person that.
I'll share the screen the next time and we can pull it up and you can go through it for the next one.
Okay, yeah, that's dope. I appreciate that.
So peace out. This I posted something this week. Grace is not just what you give out to other people. Save some of it for yourself, and just let's treat each other a little bit kinder, a little bit better than what we have been. And everything isn't about money, because when you're chasing money, you'll always be in that circle. So, with that being said, see you later, Mr. Allen. Thank you, Mr. Geo, for commenting today. And if you want to talk to us, go to the Artist Exchange page on Facebook or Instagram. And just like that, it went on.
Oh man, all right, you guys be out.
See, they doing us wrong, but I always got a backup plan.
Oh, I wonder
Always
what
got a
happened.
backup plan. So peace out, everybody.
All right, peace.